What if I told you that the Aztec Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in history, was built on crops that are nutritionally superior to almost everything in your grocery store today? And here's the kicker. These crops are easier to grow than tomatoes, require less water than lettuce, and thrive in conditions that would kill your average vegetable garden. The Aztecs weren't just warriors and architects. They were agricultural geniuses who developed a food system so advanced that it sustained millions of people in challenging environments without chemical fertilizers, without pesticides, and without irrigation systems we'd recognize today. Then Spanish conquistadors arrived, and most of these crops were deliberately suppressed or forgotten. Today, I'm revealing 8 Aztec crops that outperform modern vegetables in nutrition, resilience, and ease of growing. Number 3 contains complete protein, something almost unheard of in plant foods. Number 6 was so sacred the Spanish tried to eradicate it completely. And that bonus tip at the end shows you how to combine these crops into an Aztec-inspired garden that practically grows itself. Let's rediscover what they tried to bury. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm all about growing food that's nutritious, resilient, and connected to heritage. And today we're diving into Aztec agriculture, which was far more sophisticated than most people realize. Here's what the Aztecs understood that we've forgotten. Food isn't just about calories. It's about complete nutrition, ecological balance, and crops that work with your environment instead of against it. The Aztecs developed a food system based on diversity, polyculture, and crops perfectly adapted to their challenging climate. They grew food in the mountains at high altitudes with unpredictable rainfall. They grew food in the valleys with poor soil and intense heat. They even grew food on floating gardens called chinampas in the middle of lakes. And they did all of this without modern technology, without hybrid seeds, and without the agricultural inputs we think are essential today. The crops they cultivated are nutritional powerhouses. Many contain complete proteins with all essential amino acids. Many are loaded with vitamins and minerals that are hard to find in modern vegetables. And most importantly, they're adapted to thrive in challenging conditions with minimal care. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 1500s, they recognized that Aztec agriculture was a source of power and independence, so they systematically suppressed it. Some crops were banned outright. Others were replaced with European crops like wheat and barley. Within a few generations, much of this agricultural knowledge was lost. But not all of it. Some crops survived in remote indigenous communities. Some were preserved by seed savers. And today, they're experiencing a revival as people rediscover their exceptional nutrition and resilience. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel is about food sovereignty and growing crops that truly matter. And drop a comment telling me if you've ever grown any indigenous crops from the Americas. I want to hear your experience. All right, let's start with Aztec crop number 1. Crop number 1, amaranth. Starting at number 1, we have amaranth, and this might be the single most impressive crop the Aztecs cultivated. Amaranth was one of their 3 staple foods, along with corn and beans. It was so important to Aztec culture that it was used in religious ceremonies, mixed with honey or blood to create figures of gods that were broken and eaten in communion rituals. Here's why amaranth is more nutritious than anything in your grocery store. It contains complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids, something extremely rare in plant foods. It has more protein than wheat, rice, or oats. It's loaded with calcium, more than milk by weight. It's packed with iron, magnesium, phosphorus, and manganese. And it's gluten-free, making it perfect for people with celiac disease. The Aztecs understood amaranth's value. They cultivated it extensively, eating the seeds like grain and the young leaves like spinach. Spanish conquistadors recognized this and deliberately tried to eradicate amaranth because of its central role in Aztec religion and culture. Growing amaranth became punishable by death. Fields were burned, seeds were destroyed. But amaranth survived. Indigenous communities in remote regions continued growing it in secret, and today, amaranth is experiencing a global revival as a superfood. Here's why amaranth is easier to grow than modern vegetables. It's incredibly heat and drought tolerant. It thrives in poor soil where other crops struggle. It requires no fertilizer and almost no water once established, and it's virtually pest and disease free. You plant it, ignore it, and harvest massive yields. The plants grow 5 to 8 feet tall with stunning plumes of tiny seeds. Colors range from gold to red to deep purple. One plant can produce up to 50,000 seeds. The yield is phenomenal. How do you grow amaranth? Plant seeds in late spring after the soil warms to at least 65 degrees Fahrenheit. The amaranth loves heat and full sun. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart, or broadcast seeds thinly and thin later. Water until established, then ignore it. Amaranth is drought tolerant and thrives on neglect. Harvest seeds when the plumes turn brown and dry, usually in late summer or fall. Cut the seed heads and hang them upside down over a tarp or bucket. As they dry, seeds will fall out naturally. Thresh by rubbing the seed heads, then winnow to remove chaff. Cook amaranth seeds like quinoa. Boil them in water until tender. You can also pop amaranth seeds like tiny popcorn for a crunchy, nutty snack, or grind the seeds into flour for baking. Amaranth flour is slightly sweet and adds protein to breads and pancakes. Don't forget the leaves. Young amaranth leaves are delicious, tasting like mild spinach. Harvest when plants are 6 to 12 inches tall. Sauté them, add them to soups, or eat them fresh in salads. Amaranth represents resilience. It survived genocide, cultural suppression, and centuries of neglect. Today, it's reclaiming its place as one of humanity's most important crops, and you can grow it in your backyard with less effort than tomatoes. Crop number 2, chia. At number 2, we have chia. And yes, it's the same chia you've seen as a trendy superfood in health food stores. But long before chia became a modern fad, it was a staple crop of the Aztecs, valued for its incredible nutritional density and energy-boosting properties. Here's why chia is more nutritious than modern vegetables. It's loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, even more than flax seeds. It has complete protein with all essential amino acids. It's packed with fiber, about 10 grams per ounce. And it's rich in calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and antioxidants. Aztec warriors ate chia before battles and on long journeys because it provided sustained energy. The word chia comes from the Aztec word chian, meaning oily. 1 tablespoon of chia seeds could sustain a warrior for 24 hours, according to Aztec tradition. Spanish conquistadors recognized chia's importance and suppressed its cultivation. For centuries, chia was grown only in remote regions of Mexico. But in the 1990s, researchers rediscovered chia's nutritional benefits, and cultivation expanded worldwide. Here's why chia is easier to grow than modern vegetables. It's incredibly drought-tolerant, thriving in arid conditions with minimal water. It requires no fertilizer or pesticides. And it's a fast-growing annual that matures in just 90 to 120 days. Chia plants grow 3 to 5 feet tall, with beautiful purple or white flowers that attract bees and beneficial insects. The seeds form in small clusters along the stems. How do you grow chia? Plant seeds in spring after the last frost. Chia prefers full sun and well-drained soil. Broadcast seeds thinly, or plant in rows 18 inches apart. Water until established, then reduce watering. Chia is drought-tolerant and actually produces better seeds with moderate water stress. Harvest when the flowers have dried and the seeds are mature, usually 4 to 5 months after planting. Cut the seed stalks and hang them to dry. Thresh by rubbing the dried flower heads over a bucket, then winnow to clean the seeds. Chia seeds are incredibly versatile. Add them to smoothies, sprinkle them on salads, mix them into yogurt, or make chia pudding by soaking seeds in liquid until they form a gel. The gel is due to soluble fiber that absorbs up to 12 times the seed's weight in water. Chia represents ancient wisdom. The Aztecs knew what modern science is just confirming. Chia is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, and it grows with minimal effort in conditions where most crops struggle. Crop number 3, tepary beans. Number 3 is tepary beans, and these are the ultimate survival crop. Tepary beans were cultivated by indigenous peoples in Mexico and the American Southwest for at least 5,000 years. The Aztecs valued them because they thrived in hot, arid conditions where other beans failed. Here's why tepary beans are more nutritious than modern beans. They have higher protein content than common beans, about 23% protein by weight. They're exceptionally high in fiber and resistant starch, which supports gut health and blood sugar control. And they're packed with iron, calcium, and B vitamins. But the real magic of tepary beans is their resilience. They're the most drought-tolerant beans in the world. Tepary beans can produce a crop with as little as 10 inches of rainfall per year, conditions that would kill common beans. They thrive in temperatures over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and they have deep taproots that access water far below the surface. The Aztecs grew tepary beans in regions where no other crop would survive. They understood that diversity in crops meant security. If one crop failed, others would succeed. Here's why tepary beans are easier to grow than modern vegetables. Once established, they require almost no water. They need no fertilizer because they fix their own nitrogen. They're resistant to most pests and diseases, and they're incredibly productive, yielding heavily even in poor soil. Tepary beans come in many colors: white, brown, black, and speckled. Each color has a slightly different flavor, but all are creamy, nutty, and delicious. How do you grow tepary beans? Plant seeds in late spring after the soil warms and frost danger passes. Tepary beans need heat to germinate and grow. Plant seeds 1 inch deep and 4 to 6 inches apart. Water until plants are established, then stop. Seriously, tepary beans produce better with minimal water. Harvest when the pods dry and turn brown, usually 80 to 100 days after planting. Pull the entire plant and hang it to dry completely. Then thresh to remove the beans from the pods. Cook tepary beans like any dried bean. Soak overnight, then simmer until tender. The flavor is rich and earthy, perfect for soups, stews, and refried beans. Tepary beans also hold their shape well, making them excellent for salads. Tepary beans represent adaptation. They evolved to thrive in the harshest conditions. Growing them today is a reminder that resilient food systems are built on crops that can survive adversity, not perfect conditions. Crop number 4, huitlacoche. At number 4, we have huitlacoche, and this one's unusual. Huitlacoche is actually a fungus that grows on corn, turning the kernels into swollen, black, mushroom-like growths. In modern industrial agriculture, it's considered a disease and called corn smut, but the Aztecs considered it a delicacy, and modern chefs agree. Here's why huitlacoche is more nutritious than regular corn. The fungus increases the protein content of corn kernels by up to 300%. It's rich in lysine, an essential amino acid that's lacking in regular corn, and it contains unique bioactive compounds with potential health benefits. The Aztecs actively encouraged huitlacoche growth on their corn. They understood that it transformed ordinary corn into something extraordinary. The flavor is earthy, smoky, and slightly sweet, often compared to mushrooms with a hint of corn. Today, huitlacoche is considered a gourmet ingredient in Mexican cuisine. It's used in quesadillas, tamales, soups, and sauces. In Mexico, it's called Mexican truffle and commands premium prices. Here's why huitlacoche is easier to grow than modern vegetables. You don't grow it, it grows itself on your corn. You just have to recognize it and harvest it instead of treating it like a disease. How do you encourage huitlacoche? Grow any variety of corn. When the corn is silking, look for signs of the fungus. It appears as swollen, grayish-white galls on the ears. As the fungus matures, the galls turn black and velvety. Harvest huitlacoche when the galls are young, before they turn fully black and start to sporulate. At this stage, they're tender and flavorful. Use immediately or freeze for later use. Cook huitlacoche by sautéing it with onions and peppers. Add it to quesadillas, tacos, or omelets. The flavor is unique and deeply savory. Some seed companies now sell huitlacoche spore inoculant, allowing you to intentionally infect your corn. But honestly, if you grow corn and see huitlacoche appear naturally, embrace it. You've just turned a disease into gourmet food. Huitlacoche represents perspective. What industrial agriculture calls a pest or disease, traditional agriculture recognizes as a gift. The Aztecs saw value where modern farming sees only problems. Crop number 5. Chayote. Number 5 is chayote, a climbing vine that produces pear-shaped fruits that taste like a mild, crisp squash. Chayote was cultivated throughout Mesoamerica, and the Aztecs valued it for its productivity and versatility. Here's why chayote is more nutritious than common squash. It's incredibly low in calories but high in fiber, making it perfect for healthy diets. It's rich in vitamin C, folate, and potassium, and it contains antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds that support overall health. But the real magic of chayote is its productivity. A single vine can produce 50 to 100 fruits per season. The fruits store for months without refrigeration, and every part of the plant is edible. The fruit, the young shoots, the tuberous roots, even the seeds. The Aztecs grew chayote on trellises alongside corn and beans, creating a layered food system that maximized space and productivity. Here's why chayote is easier to grow than modern vegetables. It's perennial in warm climates, coming back year after year. It's virtually pest and disease free. It tolerates poor soil and drought once established, and it requires almost no maintenance beyond initial planting and providing a trellis. Chayote grows vigorously with vines reaching 30 to 50 feet in a single season. The vines produce tendrils that cling to anything they can reach. How do you grow chayote? Start with a whole fruit from a grocery store or specialty market. Plant the entire fruit on its side, half buried in the soil, in late spring after frost danger passes. Provide a sturdy trellis or fence for the vine to climb. Water regularly until the vine is established, then reduce watering. Chayote is drought tolerant once its roots develop. The first year, growth may be slow, but by the second year, the vine explodes with productivity. Harvest fruits when they're 4 to 6 inches long and the skin is still tender. Overripe fruits become tough and fibrous. Chayote fruits store well at cool room temperature for several months. Cook chayote like summer squash. Slice it and sauté it, add it to soups and stews or stuff and bake it. The flavor is mild and slightly sweet, absorbing other flavors beautifully. Young chayote shoots, called chiotextile, are a delicacy. They taste like a cross between asparagus and cucumber. Harvest when shoots are tender and cook like asparagus. Chayote represents abundance. One vine produces more food than most families can eat. And it does so with minimal care, year after year in warm climates. Hey, quick pause. If you're realizing that Aztec crops are both more nutritious and easier to grow than modern vegetables, hit that like button right now. This is information that empowers you to grow better food with less effort. And drop a comment telling me which of these Aztec crops you're most excited to try. I want to hear from you. Alright, let's keep going because the next 3 crops are even more impressive. Crop number 6, huauzontle. At number 6, we have huauzontle, a relative of amaranth and quinoa that produces edible flower buds and young leaves. Huauzontle was a staple green vegetable in Aztec diets, eaten fresh or cooked in stews and tamales. Here's why huauzontle is more nutritious than modern greens. It's exceptionally high in calcium, even more than amaranth. It's packed with iron, vitamins A and C, and fiber. And it contains protein, unusual for a leafy green. The Aztecs cultivated huauzontle extensively, harvesting the tender flower buds before they opened. The buds were boiled, then fried or added to soups. The flavor is similar to broccoli with a slightly nutty undertone. Today, huauzontle is still popular in Mexico, especially during Lent when meat is avoided. It's used in traditional dishes like tortitas de huauzontle, where the flower clusters are dipped in egg batter and fried. Here's why huauzontle is easier to grow than modern vegetables. It's heat and drought tolerant, thriving in conditions that would stress broccoli or other greens. It grows quickly, maturing in 60 to 90 days, and it requires no special care, fertilizer, or pest management. Huauzontle plants grow 3 to 5 feet tall with branching stems covered in small, densely packed flower buds. The plants are beautiful, with colors ranging from green to red to purple. How do you grow huauzontle? Plant seeds in spring after frost danger passes. Huauzontle prefers full sun and well-drained soil. Space plants 12 to 18 inches apart. Water regularly until established, then reduce watering. Huauzontle is drought tolerant once rooted. Harvest the tender flower clusters when they're young and compact, before the flowers open. Cut the stems with clusters attached. New branches will form, giving you multiple harvests throughout the season. Cook huauzontle by boiling the flower clusters in salted water for a few minutes to remove any bitterness. Then sauté with garlic and onions, or dip in egg batter and fry. The texture is tender and slightly crisp. The flavor is unique and delicious. Huauzontle represents forgotten diversity. While we obsess over a dozen common vegetables, crops like huauzontle, which are just as easy to grow and more nutritious, sit forgotten. The Aztecs knew better. Crop number 7, nopal, prickly pear cactus. Number 7 is nopal, the prickly pear cactus. The Aztecs cultivated nopal extensively, eating the young pads, nopals, as a vegetable, and the fruits, tunas, as a sweet treat. Nopal was a staple in Aztec diets and remains a cornerstone of Mexican cuisine today. Here's why nopal is more nutritious than modern vegetables. The pads are incredibly high in fiber, both soluble and insoluble. They're rich in vitamins A, C, and K, plus calcium, magnesium, and potassium, and they contain unique compounds that help regulate blood sugar, making nopal especially valuable for people with diabetes. Studies show that eating nopal before meals can reduce blood sugar spikes by up to 48%. The soluble fiber slows the absorption of carbohydrates, creating a more stable blood sugar response. The Aztecs understood nopal's value beyond nutrition. It was a survival crop that grew in arid, rocky conditions where almost nothing else could survive. It required no irrigation, no fertilizer, and no care. It simply grew. Here's why nopal is easier to grow than modern vegetables. It's one of the most drought-tolerant crops on Earth. It thrives in poor, rocky soil. It requires zero maintenance once established, and it's virtually indestructible, surviving extreme heat, cold, and neglect. Prickly pear cacti grow 3 to 6 feet tall, depending on species, with flat, paddle-shaped pads covered in spines. The plants produce stunning flowers in spring, followed by sweet, edible fruits. How do you grow nopal? Start with a pad, cutting, from an existing plant. Let the cut end dry and callous for a week, then plant it half-buried in well-drained soil. Water sparingly until roots develop. Once established, nopal needs almost no water. Harvest young pads when they're 4 to 8 inches long and still tender. Use tongs or thick gloves to handle them. Remove the spines by scraping with a knife or burning them off over a flame. Cook nopal by cutting the pads into strips and boiling or grilling them. They have a slightly sour, green bean-like flavor with a texture similar to okra. Use them in tacos, salads, soups, or omelets. The fruits, tunas, are sweet and juicy, tasting like a cross between watermelon and bubblegum. Harvest when fully colored and slightly soft. Peel carefully to remove the small spines on the skin. Nopal represents ultimate resilience. It grows where nothing else survives. It feeds people in the harshest environments. That's the genius of Aztec agriculture, choosing crops that thrive, not just survive. Crop number 8, chilacayote, fig leaf gourd. And finally, at number 8, we have chilacayote, also called fig leaf gourd. This massive squash was cultivated by the Aztecs for its seeds, flesh, and young shoots. Chilacayote can grow up to 30 pounds per fruit in stores for up to a year without refrigeration. Here's why chilacayote is more nutritious than common squash. The seeds are incredibly high in protein, fat, and minerals. They're eaten toasted like pumpkin seeds but are larger and more flavorful. The flesh is rich in vitamins A and C, fiber, and antioxidants. And the young shoots and tendrils are edible, tasting like mild cucumber. The Aztecs valued chilacayote for its storage qualities. One fruit could feed a family for weeks. The flesh was boiled, roasted, or dried for long-term storage. The seeds were ground into meal or pressed for oil. Here's why chilacayote is easier to grow than modern vegetables. It's incredibly vigorous, with vines that grow 20 to 30 feet in a season. It's drought-tolerant once established. It's pest and disease resistant, and it produces massive yields from just a few plants. Chilacayote fruits are round or oblong, with white or light green skin. The flesh is white and fibrous, with a mild, slightly sweet flavor. The texture is similar to spaghetti squash. How do you grow chilacayote? Plant seeds in late spring in full sun. Chilacayote needs heat to thrive. Provide plenty of space. The vines sprawl aggressively. Water regularly until established, then reduce watering. Harvest when the fruits are fully mature and the skins are hard, usually in fall. Cure the fruits in a warm, dry place for 2 weeks, then store in a cool, dry location. They'll last for months. Cook chilacayote by cutting it open, removing the seeds, and boiling or roasting the flesh. The flesh shreds into spaghetti-like strands, perfect for savory or sweet dishes. In Mexico, chilacayote is often cooked with piloncillo, unrefined cane sugar, to make a sweet, syrupy dessert. Toast the seeds like pumpkin seeds. They're large, crunchy, and incredibly flavorful. Chilacayote represents food security. One plant produces enough food to sustain a family through winter, and it does so with minimal care, thriving in hot, dry conditions where other squashes struggle. All right, I promised you a bonus tip, and this one's game-changing. Here it is. How to create an Aztec-inspired polyculture garden that combines these crops into a system that's more productive and resilient than any monoculture. The Aztecs didn't grow crops in isolated rows like modern gardens. They used polyculture, growing multiple crops together in the same space. The most famous example is the Three Sisters: corn, beans, and squash grown together. But Aztec polyculture was much more sophisticated. Here's how to create your own Aztec garden. Start with corn as your vertical structure. Plant amaranth between corn rows. It grows tall but doesn't shade the corn. Plant tepary beans at the base of corn stalks. They'll climb the corn and fix nitrogen. Plant chilacayote or chayote around the edges. The vines will spread outward without interfering. Between the corn and beans, plant nopal in a sunny corner. It requires no water and provides year-round harvests. Plant huauzontle in any remaining spaces. Add chia along borders where it can receive full sun. This layered system mimics natural ecosystems. Different plants occupy different heights and niches. Tall crops don't shade short crops. Nitrogen-fixing crops feed heavy feeders. Drought-tolerant crops anchor the system during dry spells. The result is a garden that's more productive per square foot than monoculture. It's more resilient because diversity protects against failure, and it's easier to maintain because the plants support each other. Water only during establishment. Once rooted, most Aztec crops are drought-tolerant and require minimal water. Fertilize sparingly or not at all. These crops evolved in nutrient-poor conditions and don't need heavy feeding. Harvest continuously throughout the season. Amaranth leaves, then seeds. Huauzontle flower clusters. Nopal pads and fruits. Chilacayote fruits in fall. Tepary beans when pods dry. Chia seeds in late summer. This is how the Aztecs fed millions of people without modern technology. They understood polyculture, they chose resilient crops, and they worked with nature instead of against it. You can do the same in your backyard. Start small. Choose 2 or 3 Aztec crops and plant them together. Observe how they interact. Expand next year. Within a few seasons, you'll have a productive, low-maintenance food system based on 5,000 years of agricultural wisdom. So there you have it. 8 Aztec crops that are more nutritious than anything in your grocery store and easier to grow than modern vegetables. Amaranth, chia, tepary beans, huitlacoche, chayote, huauzontle, nopal, and chilacayote. Every single one of these crops is a testament to Aztec agricultural genius. They're more nutritious, more resilient, and more productive than the crops that replaced them. They thrive in challenging conditions. They require minimal care, and they produce abundant harvests. The Aztecs built one of the most powerful civilizations in history on these crops. Then Spanish colonizers tried to erase them, replacing them with European crops and agricultural systems. But these crops survived, and today we can reclaim them. When you grow these crops, you're not just growing food. You're preserving indigenous agricultural knowledge. You're resisting corporate control of seeds. You're building a more resilient food system. And you're connecting with 5,000 years of tradition. If this video inspired you, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. This channel is about growing food that truly matters. And drop a comment below telling me which Aztec crop you're planting first. I want to hear your plans. Remember, the best crops aren't always the ones being pushed by big agriculture. Sometimes the best crops are the ones that were nearly forgotten. The Aztecs knew that, and now you do too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Now get out there and grow like an Aztec.